Hello, my name is Tara and my project video is over geology. So I'm going to be covering a couple topics in geology that will give us a better understanding of the earth, how it is formed, how it is forming, how things such as mountains were formed and volcanoes, our plates, and gives us a little insight on the layers of earth and Earth's geological history. So to start us off, I'm going to talk a little bit about the 4 layers of the earth. The 4 layers of the earth consist of the crust, the mantle, the outer core, and the inner core. The inner core, we'll start there. It is the center of the earth, and it is about 800 miles. It's about 800 miles to the center of the earth. There we have just a solid ball of metal, which we think is iron. And it's so tightly compacted and has so much pressure on it that it's solid. Next, outside of the inner core, we have the outer core, which is molten magma. And this is a liquid form, and it is about 1,300 miles thick, so very thick. Above the outer core we have the mantle. This is the solid rocky layer, and it's under a lot of stress, so it flows like plastic. It has circulating currents, which is the cause of the plates that we have to move, and it is about 1,800 miles thick. And lastly, we have the crust. The crust is the part of Earth that we see. It is about 5 to 30 miles deep, so it is also the thinnest layer. And it's kind of like the outer shell of the Earth. It's made up of rock mostly and dirt, and it has the moving plates, which are being moved by the mantle underneath it. When we talk about plates, we are referring to plate tectonics, which is another topic that we'll cover. And plate tectonics is actually a theory, and it says that there are about 20 plates of various sizes and thickness that drift slowly in the crust of the earth. When I say theory, it's a theory because nobody has been around long enough to actually witness plate tectonics, and nobody was around when it first happened. That also brings me to the continental drift theory. Alfred Wegener developed the continental drift theory in 1912. The reason that it's not a specific law, as I said, is that no one can prove it. So we had this large landmass, which was a supercontinent called Pangaea. And Pangaea was the thought that all our continents that we have now are one big huge landmass. And it was formed, and it started to break off and go different places as the plates moved. And there's been evidence to support this with things that are in Africa now that could also be what was South America today. So we see there that there is evidence of the continental drift that could make it more of a law than a theory, but since nobody was alive during that time, it remains a theory. We have evidence still of plates moving with the Andes Mountains along the west coast of South Africa and the uplifting of the Teton Mountains in America. It's also said to be thought that California will one day be, millions of years from now, of course, be where Alaska is in present day time. And that's because of the northward motion that's happening under that fault line, the San Andreas fault line. Also, along the rim of the Pacific Ocean, there's a place called the Ring of Fire. And that is because there's many volcanoes happening along the edge of that plate and creating the new Pacific Islands. And Hawaii is a great example of that with new islands forming. When you have the main island and then all the smaller islands that go with it, the plates have moved, and each time the plate is going over a new hotspot, so a different island is formed. There's 3 types of plate movements. There is divergent, and divergent means the pulling apart, which is what we see on the ocean floor. It's seen under the ocean floor, and it causes seafloor spreading. Then we have convergent, which is pressing together, and this is what forms the uplifting of mountains, and it can also create volcanoes and earthquakes. And then we have transform fault rubbing, which is when earthquakes, this can be when earthquakes are caused, but this is a rubbing together of the plates. So this also recycles the Earth's crust. So this goes in with the cycle, the fault cycle. When we talk about plates and uplifting and stuff, that goes on to talk about mountain building. And mountains are built because of these forms of movement. There are 4 types of mountains. There are folded, upwarped, fault block, and volcanic. With a folded mountain, you'll notice that the sections that are uplifted are rounded, and you'll see that in things, in diagrams and stuff. You'll see that there's this folded motion happening with the thing. So you'll see something sort of like in Death Valley, the mountains that are there. In an upward mountain, which is a type of uplifting, the tectonic plates will press together with great force, and a center section will lift and rise upward. This is seen in the Matterhorn and in the Alps. We have also fault block mountains, and in fault block mountains you will see an uplifting in which the 2 outer sides will push together, and the stress will push the mountain upward. And you can see that with the Teton Mountains. They're lifting 12 inches a year, so they're very young and they're still rising. With older mountains, such as the Smokies, they're a little bit older and they're more rounded because they've been worn down by erosion. And that's the way that you can tell if a mountain is young or old. Usually a young mountain will have jagged peaks, and old mountains are smoother because of erosion. Another form of mountains is volcanic. And with a volcanic mountain, they tend to be alone and have like this sloped edge to them. That's because of the volcanic eruption will rise and then slowly go down the sides, and then as another one will go up, it'll go down, and they're usually by themselves because of that volcanic hotspot that are there with them. Sometimes they will explode in a great force. Other times they will gradually push upward because of the Earth's and it causes the Earth's crust to rise. So that's another little topic on volcanoes. Inside of a volcano there is magma, and when it reaches the top it turns to lava, and there can be ash from a volcano. Lava rock is seen, there's Hawaii there are islands that were formed just because of the volcanic times. There's also a large volcanic action that created a volcano, and it lay dormant for years, and around it, the top of it caved in and began to fill in with water. And then over time, nobody knowing it was a volcano, it erupted again. And then there's now another island inside of the volcano top that was once there. So that's our main things that follow through with the crust and the mantle, which go into plate tectonics, which then takes us to mountain building and volcanoes. So the last thing that we need to just cover a little bit is historical geology. So the geologic time is the passage of time according to evidence found in fossils. We study these things that we find, and we can give them a date or an era of when they were around. First, we have the Paleozoic time, which was ancient life, and it was 570 to 286 million years ago. This is when Pangaea was a landmass, and they split, and the Appalachian Mountains were formed. Appalachian Mountains are very old. We can find things, fossils of amphibians and sharks and shelled animals and tree life and plant life and things like that can tell us, that can date that time back. The Mesozoic era is referred to as middle life, and this was 245 to 144 million years ago, and this was the Jurassic period when we see the dinosaurs, and the lives that were around besides dinosaurs were plants and grasses and mammals and birds, and the formation of the Sierra Nevada mountains and the Atlantic Ocean. So when we find these things, we know that they were dated from that certain time. Then we have the Cenozoic era, which is from the end of the Mesozoic to now. So that's 66 million years ago to the present. And of course, in the present, we have us and all of our wonders around us today, but we're also living in the same area as mastodons and the saber-toothed tigers and the large beasts and bears that really came across that ice shelf from Pangaea there when they would migrate to find warmer weather. This is also when the Rocky Mountains were formed, the Alps and the Cascades, and as I was saying, with the Ice Age, when they would travel to find warmth and to get away from the ice, they came across that ice shelf there. And then all these things really tell us about the time periods in which Earth was growing and becoming what it is now. I hope all of these information help everybody. Thank you.